Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. Yang bahagia Dato' Ibrahim Rahman, Board of Governors, the Bankers Club, thank you for a very kind introduction. And judging by the sorry state of Malaysian football today, I think there's a greater likelihood of me climbing the political ladder than saving Malaysian football. We all have our wish list. Yang bahagia Dato' Nikmaddin, Board of Governors. Yang bahagia Dato' Kulasegaran, Member of the Board. Mr. Michael Durman, General Manager. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be speaking at the Bankers Club in the heart of Kuala Lumpur with some of the best of corporate Malaysia as my audience. For more than 20 years, this club has served as an important venue for social leaders to congregate for the purposes of business and leisure. To be a member of this club is to be a successful and privileged member of society, a marker that one has arrived. Most importantly, it also signifies one's position to be able to inspire others. And the Malaysian story is at a juncture today where inspirational ideas and inspirational figures may decide if it takes a path towards fulfilling the promise so apparent during different points of our journey. And in a nutshell, this is what I believe: inspiration is what One Malaysia hopes to achieve. I won't stand here today to offer a lengthy and descriptive take on what One Malaysia means conceptually, lest I fuel the debate about what supposedly elusive definition of the term, except to say this: perhaps some level of personalization of the concept isn't all that bad. One Malaysia as a state of mind can mean slightly different things to different people, without us having to fear that it wouldn't work or that social foundations would crumble. I'm much more interested to speak about the context under which and the reason why One Malaysia is gaining traction, even if its precise trajectory is yet uncertain, and for us to take hold of. And the context, ladies and gentlemen, is that of change, and more importantly, the struggle to dominate that space of change. As an avid student of history, I have always understood Malaysia as a land of contestations, a land where different visions of the country were and continue to be played out in the battleground of ideas, charting the course of our history. Malaysia's diversity lends itself to these different narratives. Malaysia's diversity has encouraged the charting of different paths with different signposts. We have been serenaded by ideologies and thoughts that appeal to our ethnicity, our religion, our income, and all the different things that make us different. But beneath grand political visions made glorious by the soundbite culture of our time lies the true battle that needs resolving: the question of identity. The question of who we are is at the core of our national conversation. It defines and dictates our politics. It forces us to confront grey areas where there are sometimes no right answers. Why does one young Malaysian get a scholarship to go to university and another with the same grades doesn't? How do we bury the remains of one of our citizens who has converted to another religion without telling his family? These are some of the tough calls at the center of our crisis of identity. And to resolve this requires nothing less than a new political language, a new political approach, a new politics within the overarching and loose framework of One Malaysia. I call this new politics the politics of empathy, which has immense potential to inspire and rally Malaysians through a new narrative of mutual understanding, appreciation and respect. This is the change that I am promoting. As a multi-ethnic and multi-religious society, we have for far too long failed to properly address this identity impasse. Specifically, the reconciliation of ethno-religious identities with the national character that all Malaysians share hasn't been pursued with adequate vigor. In articulating our ideas for Malaysia's future, many ascribe ourselves either an ethnocentric perspective or relegate ethnicity to the sphere of irrelevance, often for political expediency. We either pursue a narrative that divides us by our faiths and culture, or appeal to a notion that our respective heritage is not important and that we must create something confusing, like a Malaysian Malaysia. The trouble with such tendencies is this: not only does either extreme result in an inaccurate picture of our society at its present, It surely cannot be the way forward if we are to find the equipoise that has eluded us thus far. For non-Bumiputra Malaysians, for non-Bumiputra citizens, this country is the only one they know and the only one they wish to call home. The politics of empathy means that Malays and Bumiputras must understand the gravity of perceived second-class treatment amongst the non-Bumiputra community. Having to go against a public system that one believes rightly or otherwise is quasi-exclusively pro-Malay Muslim can only yield hurt and exasperation. And if this feeling is ignored, or worse, ridiculed, then at some point members of some communities will ask the painful question, do I really fit in this country that I love? But if the politics of empathy is to work for all, those same groups who may harbor discontent must also appreciate the collective consciousness of the Malay community in which exists a sense of heritage and identification with origins of this country's civilization and the pivotal role that the Malay culture and system of governance played in the establishment of this nation. This feeling towards an appreciation of the origin of this nation, the sense that while this nation is for all Malaysians, but has its roots firmly within the Malay community, the sense of sacrifice that the Malay community still feels for agreeing to create a nation where everyone could belong and call this land our home, is not something that exists only in the imagination of UMNO leaders and Utusan Malaysia readers. It is a collective Malay feeling that may never dissipate, not even with the passage of time. There is no disputing that these facts are pertinently clear in the public sphere. But the problem is that they are clear only within enclosed communal conversations and perspectives. Almost as though there is one reality for one group and another for another group. The ethnic Chinese in Bangsa, for example, who demands absolute meritocracy in admissions to public university, seldom properly appreciates that there is an ethnic Iban in the interior of Sarawak who may justifiably require a form of hand-up to enter university, leaving behind the longhouse and proud parents who never had a taste of formal education. The ethnic Malay who prescribes sacrosanct status to the 30% rule does not always do so with constant awareness that there are many ethnic Indians living in poverty, Malaysian Indians who feel they haven't been given a fair go at the pie. In the absence of empathy and a national dialogue encompassing a broader perspective for all Malaysians, it is little wonder that each group seems to know only its own grievances. As one, I must admit that politicians and political commentators are sometimes not helpful in bringing about this new politics of empathy. Politicians from both sides of the aisle have spent entire careers mastering the art of selective fact presentation, tragically designed to win only a section of the people and leave out the rest. The same day one may fall back on the race card to boost popularity within his own party, another laments why we have so few non-Malay headmasters, whilst conveniently disregarding the perceived exclusion of ethnic Malays in the private sector. Needless to say, this goes against the agenda of promoting an empathetic society, to see things not as they are according to you, but as they are according to others. I therefore cannot overstate how strongly I feel about the need to change how we conduct politics, to do away with the poisonous and unhealthy segmentation and replace it with a philosophy of inclusion, a starting point from which a national conversation grounded on compassion can ensue over important policy matters that shape our collective future. Out of this honest conversation may develop a new national consciousness, a thumping reaffirmation of what we already know in our better moments, that Malaysia will never achieve its potential without all elements working in tandem, that we cannot be all that we can be without all of us, that this country is not for any one group to monopolize and dominate in whatever field, but for all to prosper, Malay, Chinese, Indian, Iban, Kadazan, Eurasian, Sikh, Dayak, Muruk, and all the proud different people that make up Malaysia. Let us not forget the quintessential Malaysian experience is derived from the contribution of all the different communities in this country. And let us not ignore that the only future that we can have, the only future that will ensure that this ideal that is Malaysia survives, is one in which we value each and every one of us. It's a Malaysia where no one group is left behind, where meritocracy is just as important as social justice and compassion, where the poor and the rich are not identified by certain ethnic groups. It is a Malaysia where if one of us falls, all of us picks him up. This is the only way we're going to make this ideal of Malaysia work.